Hello everyone and welcome to the showdown between the Tomb Kings led by SETTRA on his Pimp Chariot and the Beastmen who are going to be led by Morker the Chaos Cow. So let's jump right into this match guys and have some fun. So as far as my army composition goes, it's going to be a relatively construct heavy army. Two groups of Ushapti Great Bows, which I really like. They're pretty good against Bestigor herds, but mainly I really like to use them as counterplay against Centaurs with throwing axes. So one of the best answers, and I think one of the only answers the Beastman really has against heavy constructs is a bunch of Centaurs with throwing axes. I think in total my opponent has 3, so 1, 2, 3, and does he have any over here? I do not think so. So Centaurs with throwing axes, very mobile, 95 movement speed. They can pretty much outrun anything that the Tomb Kings can throw at them, and as the Tomb Kings, I don't really think it's viable to use Skeleton Horsemen and Nehekar Horsemen to chase these guys down, simply because regular Centaurs, I mean, these guys could probably honestly like kite them and then beat them in melee even if you do catch them. So the way to really deal with Centaurs with throwing axes in this matchup, well, I guess it's really the only time you would be dealing with it, is to use the Ushapti Great Bows, 255 range compared to the 70 of the Centaurs with great weapons or throwing axes. So you just kind of screen them out with those. But the really important thing is you have to have carrion. So you use the two groups of carrion, you just kind of fly them around, which takes the throwing axe ammunition. And if you're able to catch the Centaurs with the carrion, they have like really annoying melee defense. You could actually see that the melee defense on these carrion is 46 with 40 weapon strength, so they can really do a ton of damage against Centaurs with throwing axes. So you basically just screen them out with the carrion and shoot them down with the Ushapti Great Bows. Aside from that, a front line of skeleton warriors. I think I just have 3 groups. Obviously, very construct heavy. I do have the Iron Titan here, which gives you the Winds of Magic, all kinds of good stuff. I also have a Khemrian War Sphinx, which I think are probably the 2 optimal choices against the Beastmen. You don't really need the Necro Sphinx. I think the Necro Sphinx is a little bit more necessary in like kaiju battle scenarios when you're fighting against like Terrorgeist and things like that. But here, the Khemrian War Sphinx just routes Bestigors. Like, it runs over Bestigors, it runs over Ungors, the Spearmen. It's a very, very good kind of monstrous unit here. And the Iron Titan gives you Spirit Leech, Fear, and Terror, and it's pretty durable in the front line as well, especially if you support it with an Necrotect. So some Skeleton Warriors just to support, 2 groups of Ushapti Great Bows to take out these guys and kind of pick off some of the Minotaurs and all that kind of good stuff, and 1 group of Skeleton Spears. So Arc in the Black is probably one of the more optimal choices, but in this match I wanted to try using SETTRA on his Pimp Chariot. So the Chariot of the Gods, I mean, it's very expensive, and it does cut into your army quite a bit. I think it costs like, man, was it like 3,200 after all was said and done? But 420 weapon damage with good AP and a bonus versus infantry is really going to just mess up the like low tier Beastmen troops, and even against Bestigors, because this thing has insane armor piercing values. On top of that, I have a couple spells, the Usirian's Incantation of Vengeance to slow things down, Nero's Incantation of Protection, and the Djaf's Incantation of the Cursed Blades. So definitely some fun stuff. I'm not really going to be getting that great of a benefit from the, the frickin' Realm of Souls, or the Restless Dead, which is the passive from the Lore of Nehekara. I only have a couple skeletons, but really I just wanted to use the augmentation abilities and the slow from Usirians and see if I could get some good value from that. But aside from that, Unyielding Will, I mean, he's very strong. SETTRA is definitely very powerful in the right situation. So you can see the Great Bows are already screening off the Centaurs, so I can really kind of dictate the pace of the battle. If my opponent wants to sit back, I can shoot and harass with the Ushapti Great Bows. And I also knew that this was a map that had a really annoying line of sight blocker in the middle. So anytime you're facing off against that, it's really important to get, a flying scout unit, whether it be like Fellbats, so you can get line of sight, or, and then, start shooting at your opponent here. So for my opponent's army, Centaurs with throwing axes, a very, very good pick, a wise pick from my opponent there. In the main line, Bestigor herds supported by Ungor spears, honestly very solid. Bestigors are going to munch down on my skeletons, clear up the space to allow his spears and other troops to get on my constructs, so very good pick so far. Ungor the Shadow Gave, Morker the Shadow Gave. 2 groups of miners with great weapons, which are a very all-in unit. Like, if they're able to get that optimal surround on my constructs without being inundated by chaff and other things like that, these guys can be world beaters. But yeah, they can take a ton of Ushapti Great Bow damage, and Skeleton Spears can really tear these guys to shreds. 2 groups of those. He does also have a Bracian with Lore of Wild, so we're going to be seeing some Cygor summons. So without further ado, guys, let's get this show on the road. So the Ushapti Great Bow shooting up here. You can also see I do use a Shem's Burning Gaze, which I don't know where that one's going, off into the Shadow Realm somewhere. But yeah, getting a little bit of damage in. It's really important to take these guys out, because I feel if the Centaurs with throwing axes are out of the picture, the rest of his army should just get monster mashed by my Khemrian War Sphinx and the Iron Titan and all that kind of good stuff. So right now, just getting my carrion. I have 1 group here and the other group here, so I'm just trying to keep line of sight to see what he's doing, and I'm just going to be kind of posturing up here at the bottom of the hill. So the Pimp Chariot is also just kind of lurking about, and I figure I'm just going to kind of push forward, use my carrion. So the carrion, I can just fly ahead, get that line of sight, and then I'm going to come with SETTRA and get the Usirian's Incantation. So it's kind of like, in terms of its like damage output, it's like maybe like 2 times as much damage as the mail cost. It often costs about twice as much, but I'm just going to be using that on these guys just to kind of chip them down, flying with carrion and getting some overwatch from the Ushapti Great Bows. we'll go ahead and fast forward a little bit as there's some posturing. My opponent does get his caster up on the hill. Probably going to start throwing some boulders at some of my Ushabti, but I was actually pretty happy about this because I could just use my carrion to fly in there and just kind of muck this guy up, and his troops were over here a little bit out of position, so I can probably get some free play on this Cygor here, and it gives me some opportunities to just use my Ushabti Great Bows and just shoot here. And SETTRA is going to be coming by, so if he does want to commit with this infantry blob, I might be able to get some pretty good chariot value. And on the low ground, just kind of sitting and hanging back with my Iro Titan and my War Sphinx over there, who's all happy, the happy puppy, happy kitty. But the carrion do really good against light armor, and you can see the Cygor is actually just getting melted. I don't know if my opponent was expecting this type of damage to be coming out. So he does respond with some of these Centaurs as throwing axes, so I'm just going to be sending SETTRA over and getting the Usirian's Incantation of Vengeance. So as soon as I see him coming here, I just pull the carrion, and you can see this, and let's actually look at the damage. So 3,900 is about the base it started at. And yeah, that's not bad at all. That's doing some really, really good damage. So the Usirian's kind of melting those guys down. The carrion just chasing them, and this is like the perfect situation. Just kind of chasing off his troops, which provide the counterplay to the Ushabti. And even if he did want to engage the Ushabti melee, these guys don't have great armor piercing in melee, so they probably wouldn't do much against the 100 armor in my Great Bows. So the Cygor is pretty much offline. You can see SETTRA is going to just be ramming it with the chariot, and of course it's degenerating. But in the meantime, my opponent has taken the opportunity. I was very kind of distracted over here, but man, that's just a colossal loss right there, just losing that Cygor like that. But I do get the Shem's Burning Gaze here, and you can see the Skeleton Warrior is going to be engaging with the Beskor herd, so the herds are definitely just going to massacre my skeletons. It's just going to be a world beating here. But the Cambrian Warp Sphinx, the happy puppy coming in and just monster mashing. Oh man, just going through rows and rows of these Beastmen. So I definitely think this is a much stronger pick than the Necro Sphinx here. But you can see the Minos with great weapons coming in pretty quick from my opponent. It's a very good reaction there, and they're going to be able to do a lot of work. And I got a little bit sloppy. I think I waited too long. But the Iro Titan's here as well, and he does have the support of the Necrotect on the low ground, so he's going to just be, using some specific Grim action, just stomping some of these guys out. We're very happy so far with his performance. And I also do get a Spirit Leech. I think I casted it on Morker with my Lord, or with my Iro Titan, then I will be switching. So SETTRA in the meantime is just kind of riding around in the chariot, just doing a lot of work actually. It does a lot more damage than regular kind of a Chariot Lords and units like that. Well, not Chariot Lords, but just regular Chariot Heroes, I guess I should say. But as far as kills on SETTRA, let's go ahead and take a look. So SETTRA is actually at 24 kills. And a lot of that came from the Beskor herds up here. He does cast the Usirian's Incantation of Vengeance to lower those guys down. And the Iro Titan and the boys are having a good old time. The Cambrian War Sphinx, but just look at the damage the Beastmen player was able to do. So very well played getting that damage. I did end up using Nero's Incantation and the Restore to kind of bring him back up to speed. But man, those great weapons can do a ton of work if left unimpeded. Over here on the far side, you can see my Ushabti Great Bows do get engaged on by the Centaurs with throwing axes. I really didn't mind this though, because I knew that I had the heavy armor and he didn't have the regular great weapons. Because rather than investing in Centaurs, he got the Minos, so I felt pretty safe in the back line. You can see that we're able to chase those guys off pretty well. I'm also using Carrion here, so the Carrion are just kind of waddling after these guys, and they're just such a nuisance to take out. I think having some Poison Hounds or some regular Centaurs to support your throwing axes would have been very useful here. So SETTRA is able to get his chariot and just run his chariot off the battlefield here, so hopefully I remember to chase it off. A lot of times I get really impatient. I'm like, I don't want my Lord to be out of the battle. The bounce bar is really close, so I pull back like this, but that's actually a really big mistake, because he already summoned a Cygor, so he's probably going to be able to get one more, which is very game-changing. So that was a huge mistake, because this guy is obviously going to rally here, and yeah, it's dangerous stuff. So my Cambrian War Sphinx is getting chased off by the Minos. A lot of my chaff units are going down, so very well played by my opponent, focusing down my spears and other units to really allow him to isolate my Iro Titan, but the Titan's obviously doing a good job just, terror routing a lot of these guys, and come on, give us some laser eyes. Do it. Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Just cutting that guy in half here. Up to 34 kills, but obviously more of a presence just kind of sitting there. But in the back, he did get his Minos kind of chasing here on SETTRA, but SETTRA is like even pretty strong in the chariot and melee. 50 melee attack, 400 plus weapon strength. I do get the Nero's Incantation here. And I also summoned some Ushabti. So knowing my Cambrian War Sphinx would have a really bad time here against these Minos, I summoned some Ushabti, which do have Thy Will Be Done. So that means they're getting 5 melee attack and 5 melee defense, which brings their stats a little bit closer to the Minotaurs, who do have a little bit of a superior stat line. But with SETTRA here, Thy Will Be Done, and these Ushabti kind of surrounding, and then also the Cambrian War Sphinx, who has some missile attacks, I should be able to finish off these Minos. And I don't know if they're immune to psychology. I don't think they are. So you can see the Happy Puppy getting in there and just doing a ton of work against the Minotaurs who are wavering. But my Ushabti Great Bows are actually in a little bit of a dangerous position. You could see SETTRA using the explosion there, the Wrath of Petra, to kind of do some AoE damage. And I don't know how well it does against like entities like Minotaurs, but it seems pretty cool. But yeah, it's a very, very tough fight here in the back line. The front definitely favoring my opponent. Skeletons are getting worn down a little bit. Balance of power is very even at this point. The Iro Titan is just going to be fighting Morker and these Chaos Spawn. Definitely very helpful keeping all these guys in check. But A huge mistake, like I said. He's able to get the Brace Shaman back online, who summons a Cygor back from the pits, and the Cygor is going to start throwing some boulders in here, which is going to hurt quite a bit. But this is very good. The Cambrian War Sphinx and my Great Bows and, SETTRA, who's a very good, like, frontline general, is able to get those melee attack buffs on all these guys and really just allow me to kind of finish off these Minotaurs. So, a great situation for me. The archers on top of the Cambrian War Sphinx also applying some good pressure. But the boulders coming in. You can see that boulder did take out one of my Shopee Great Bows there. And he also gets his Centaurs with throwing axes back here, doing some decent AP damage. So a very, very close fight. If anything, the bounce power is in his favor, but that's largely due to the Cygor being summoned, so a little bit of false inflation. But man, those Cygor boulders still very strong, just popping in there and doing some work. So the Chariot God in the back here is up to 57 kills, in pretty good shape. So I'm going to be using the Chariot to, I think, charge into some of these spears here in a moment. So the Chariot's coming in, and hopefully it'll do some good damage. And you can see, oh yeah, just getting in there. And he cleaves a few with his scythe as he runs through, up to 63 kills. And every time he like runs through one of these groups, he racks up quite a few kills. I mean, you can just see 60, 70, 75. It's just going up so quick against these low tier units. And seeing that his Brace Shaman was a little bit vulnerable here, I do grab all my Great Bows and melee. I'm like, I figure I can goon him real quick when there's no other threats nearby. And the Cambrian War Sphinx, I'm just using to kind of claw down some of these Ungors and other troops here. So the Brace Shaman down to 2 leadership, and he probably doesn't have enough wins to get another Cygor summon. I mean, it is possible if the game really dragged on, but you can see the Wrath of Petra going down and blowing up a lot of these low tier troops. And he is getting terrified. Cambrian War Sphinx at about 2k HP. And the Iron Titan, though, man, Morker has just been beasting it. Like, I had them fighting for quite some time, and Morker didn't take a lot of damage. I mean, even though I do have the fire damage, I don't know how he was kind of tanking that. But I know I was focusing down the Bestigors initially, so I think that's what it was. But if we take an overarching look at the battle, bounce power is still in my opponent's favor. He does have that Cygor. You can see the Cygor balls coming in there and just pegging my Cambrian War Sphinx. Looks like that one missed there, thankfully. But I'm just trying to fend off the throwing axes at this point, using the Carrion on the far side to kind of screen these guys out. So my opponent definitely probably should have just, I don't know, but these 14 Carrion might be able to, they would probably lose to the Centaurs, but yeah, he probably should have just committed to a fight instead of running there. I think that would have been a little bit smoother. I do use the Osirian's Incantation of Vengeance right here, and the Great Bows are going to be lining up in the desert. And I think SETTRA is going to be leading the charge, which is always pretty cool. But the Great Bows positioning and firing in here. But yeah, we might be able to get rid of them. They are shaken with 27 leadership and taking damage, but you know, this isn't a good situation for SETTRA. It's kind of free damage for my opponent here. So the Great Bows here are going to be turning. I actually did just pick off his caster, so we tried to charge in there with his caster again, and the Great Bows were able to turn and pick off the caster, which was really nice. Cygor still applying a lot of good pressure, and there are some Beastmen troops coming back, and you know, this is a big issue too. I mean, Morker was able to take out the Iron Titan, but man, that Titan actually had some pretty strong death throws. You can see Morker down to about 2,800 HP, but he is regenerating and is nowhere near his healing cap. So SETTRA and the boys are kind of repositioning here. I'm just trying to get rid of his chaff units with my Cambrian War Sphinx, who's in pretty good shape. And SETTRA, of course, is going to, no problem, going to be able to get rid of these Ungors who are wavering at negative 22 leadership. And the Great Bow is just kind of forming a pocket here and just shooting into these Centaurs with throwing axes here. They're down to negative 6 leadership, but that Cygor is just picking me apart. And yeah, like I said, despite their nerfs, Cygors are still a very popular pick, guys. So don't be afraid to pick them. I still think bringing like a natural Cygor in a lot of matchups isn't a bad idea either. So here comes another boulder. We're going to see where it hits. Here it comes. 3, 2, 1. And man, just getting right in there. It looks like it's going to kill one of my Oshopti, knock down a couple more. So at this point, I'm like, all right, enough's enough. I've had it with these snakes. So I'm going to turn on this Cygor right here, start shooting at him. He is rapidly degenerating as well. So as he goes, you know, it's going to be, the battle's going to become a lot more manageable for me here. So the bounce power now is starting to go a little bit in my favor. You can see it was like down around here, but it's now back up towards the middle. And I'm just not committing to a fight with Morker until SETTRA is back, just using my Cambrian War Sphinx to chase down the scraps, make sure these Bestigors aren't going to be chasing my Great Bows here. But that Cygor, man, just really just putting a whooping on him. But the Cygor has about 800 HP, so he should be going down here. And this is tough because SETTRA on the Chariot does do fire damage, so even though it's like an anti-infantry tool, he still has 50 melee attack. And the Chariot of the Gods is going to be getting in there, and let's see if he gets, oh yeah, look at him. He's just too cool to fight. Oh, there he goes with that big scythe. SETTRA is a really fun lord to use for sure on the Chariot. It's just so expensive. Sometimes it's hard to justify, but my Great Bows are going to finish off the Cygor. You can see the Cygor just fall to the Great Bows, but I really like, I mean, these guys are crumbling. I have 4 here. It looks like I have 2 here who are crumbling, so it's basically just going to be SETTRA and the War Sphinx, you know, versus Morker here, but I should be able to do it. SETTRA is a very strong duelist with his curse and has, like, you know, a lot of really, you know, just good combat stats, even on a Chariot, which is typically not good in a dueling type situation. He's definitely, you know, the Chariot master. If they ever add Sirtha Ek to the game, it's going to be pretty fun to see those guys dueling it out. But so the Great Bows are going to be crumbling here, but Morker is going to just be taking a world beating from SETTRA. You can see I'm getting in there. You know, the Cambrian War Sphinx is getting a nice little charge. 400 plus weapon strength, and Morker, the Shadowgave, just gets smacked down by SETTRA and the Chariot, and the Happy Puppy and you know, his master here able to win the day. So very well played to my opponent. was a good game. I think losing that Cygor in the beginning was very devastating, but ultimately he just probably figured he could put it on the high ground and kind of protect it. But I advanced with SETTRA, and some Icarian and the Great Bows were able to apply some, probably pressure that he wasn't expecting. But, I always see these Minos with great weapons, and it's really cool seeing people try and use them. But ultimately, I feel like just going with more Centaurs get one more of these guys and then some regular Centaurs just to kind of pick things off in the periphery might be a little bit stronger. I don't know, though. I have seen them work, but if you guys have had good experience in this matchup with Minotaurs with great weapons, please let me know in the comment section below. I'd love to see your guys' thoughts and opinions on builds, but ultimately, I always feel like they come up a little bit short. SETTRA was solid. I mean, I think Arc in the Black is always really good, but SETTRA really pulled work. I mean, amazing damage against these chaff units and Vestigors. The Usirians was really useful for counterplaying the Centaurs with throwing axes and really protecting my Great Bows in the back line, so I was very pleased with SETTRA and, the Iron Titan. They all speak for themselves, but yeah, aside from that, I liked my build. My opponent had some, really solid play, and you could see it was just down to the wire. It was basically just Morker versus SETTRA, and it was a great game for sure. So very well played against my opponent, Zeus. Actually, you guys probably saw the other game I played versus him. But yeah, we've had a couple good games, so well played, man. Look forward to running into you again on ladder, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this SETTRA the Imperishable game. Have an excellent night, guys, and take care.